PM calls for will to face climate change impacts. BSS, Munich. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has made a fervent call to richer nations' will to change negate the climate change impacts to protect the Mother Earth, saying their determination alone appeared missing since the would by now have the rest of the resources. We have enormous amount of science, technology, innovation, and finance at our disposal to address climate change, she said while addressing a panel discussion titled Climate Change as a Security Threat on the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference in Munich last night. The Bangladesh Premier added, "We only need the will of the richer segments of societies everywhere to act ambitiously against climate change." The Munich Security Conference drew over 25 heads of states and governments and brought together climate experts, NGOs, and research institutions, while the panel discussion was a major side event to facilitate an open dialogue that discusses the pressing global security issue. Sheikh Hasina said, "Climate change posed a real threat to human beings with unabated rise of global temperature, while it spreads clutches to Bangladesh, increasing the frequency and intensity of cyclones, storm surges, and monsoon flooding, simultaneously challenging the people's livelihood." She said despite being a low-emitting country, Bangladesh pledged in 2012 at UN General Assembly to pursue a low-carbon development pathway as its commitment to collective good. The Prime Minister said, "None should have any doubt that environment vulnerabilities only lead us fragile and jeopardize human security." Director of Potsdam Institute for Crime Impact Hans Joachim chaired the discussion, while Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs and International Trade of Kenya, Monica Juma, Foreign Minister for Norway, in a erection, US Senator Sheldon Whitehouse and co-executive director of Greenpeace International Bunny McDermott were present as panel discussions. Chief political correspondent of Deutsche Berlin Melinda Crane moderated the function and introduced the topic and speakers of the panel discussion. Sheikh Hasina said, "Climate change has become a real threat for human beings with unabated rise of global temperature. In Bangladesh, increasing cyclone storm surge and monsoon flooding challenge livelihood of our people." She said a Bay of Bengal is increasingly getting acidic, and one-third of Bangladesh's population is eventually at risk of displacement with rising sea level, although the country has a very little contribution to global warming. The Prime Minister said, "Flooding erodes riverbanks during every monsoon, and numerous families overnight become homeless and helpless. The erratic pattern and intensity of rainfall and rising heats make farming difficult for the people." Sheikh Hasina said, "Changing climate is taking toll through emergence of new pathogens. Diseases like malaria, which we successfully eradicated, risk of comeback. Similar risks are evident in diseases coming in cereals, in livestock and poultry. Temperature, temperature variation is challenging the breeding of our national fish Hilsha. All these are serious enough challenges for the precious gains we made in development, she added. The Prime Minister said, despite the fact and also the IPCC findings, a lot of people, including those that are conscious of climate change, are yet to understand the climate displacement issue. Sheikh Hasina said an estimated 46 million people were displaced in South Asia alone by sudden onset of disasters during 2008 to 2013, though the actual number of people moving internally and across borders in South Asia is not known. It is anticipated that population movement in the context of disasters and climate change in the South Asia, Southeast Asia, and in the Indian Ocean rim are likely to increase over the next decades. Next decades, she said, replying to a question. The Prime Minister said in Bangladesh, military has been engaging with a lot of development activities in the country. Military is leading the disaster response in Bangladesh. They can also be engaged in early warning mechanisms. Sheikh Hasina said most of the UN members are engaged in the discourse of climate change in the multilateral fora. We need to keep the discussions and engagement up, she added. The Prime Minister said Bangladesh is one of the most vulnerable frontline countries. In Bangladesh, the present government has mainstreamed climate actions and disaster risk reduction in national plan. We have investment of over 1% of our GDP to address climate change impacts. Moreover, $450 million has been allocated from our own sources for adoption and mitigation purposes, she mentioned. Sheikh Hasina said her commitment to low carbon, climate resilient development is firm. We plan to move to carbon budgeting, resilient industrialization, she said, adding that we wish to decarbonize our manufacturing pathways. Sheikh Hasina said Bangladesh has installed around 6 million solar home systems, provided 2 million improved cook stoves among the poorest. In spite of all limitations, she said Bangladesh has allocated $385 million to the Bangladeshi Climate Change Trust Fund (BCCTF) for adoption and mitigation.